Get ready for action, because the NBA has made a huge decision regarding Victor Wembanyama. We are diving deep into the details of his recent flagrant foul situation and why the league decided not to move forward with any further discipline. This is a story that shakes up the playoff picture, and you do not want to miss what happened in Game 4.
Tired of dropping your phone or struggling to hold it with one hand? The PopSockets Pop Grip gives you a secure grip, works as a phone stand, and even lets you swap the top for a fresh new look. Simple, useful, and perfect for everyday phone use. Click the link in the comments to grab yours on Amazon.
Next up, we look at the massive matchup set for Game 5. Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs are hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves in a critical, tied series showdown. We break down the incredible context of this playoff clash and what it means for the fate of this intense series. We are also uncovering the controversy surrounding the NBA's ruling. We examine exactly why Victor Wembanyama avoided a suspension and what the league's decision, or lack thereof, says about the future of player discipline in the league. Find out the surprising details behind the lack of a fine. And finally, we wrap up this explosive update. We confirm Victor Wembanyama is available for Game 5, and we give you all the essential takeaways you need to know before Tuesday night. Stay locked in because the playoff intensity is just heating up. The NBA has concluded its review regarding Victor Wembanyama's Flagrant 2 penalty following an altercation with Naz Reid, and has decided against imposing any further disciplinary action, specifically ruling out a suspension or a fine. This decision follows an ejection that occurred in the second quarter of Game 2 after Wembanyama threw an elbow that struck Reid's neck during a battle for a rebound. Following the incident, Spurs coach Mitch Johnson defended Wembanyama, stating that there was zero intent behind the foul and suggesting that any suspension would be ridiculous. Johnson also commented on the physicality of the teams, noting that opponents intentionally play hard with Wembanyama to disrupt his game and emphasizing that the player is entitled to defend himself. Johnson further expressed disappointment regarding the perceived lack of protection for Wembanyama, suggesting the situation was becoming disgusting. Despite the on-court sentiment from the Minnesota team, a suspension was deemed highly unlikely. The league's suspension criteria are based on a points system, counting flagrant fouls, and Wembanyama is not close to the threshold. A single flagrant 2 results in 2 points, requiring 4 such fouls or 2 flagrant 1 fouls to approach suspension territory. This precedent mirrors the situation of Nikola Jokic, who avoided a significant suspension after an altercation and ejection in the first round. While no fine was levied, the league's decision was surprising to many observers. However, the prospect of a future suspension is considered the primary deterrent. The article notes that Wembanyama does not have the extensive history of similar incidents compared to some other players. In other news, the Timberwolves managed to secure a victory in Game 4, defeating the Spurs 114-109, leveling the series at 2-2. Game 5 of the series is scheduled for Tuesday night in San Antonio at 8 p.m. ET and will be broadcast on NBC and available on Peacock. San Antonio, Texas, May 11, 2026. The highly anticipated NBA Conference semifinals are set for a decisive Game 5 tomorrow, May 12, at 8 p.m. ET on NBC and Peacock, as Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs host Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. The series is currently tied at 2 games apiece. Minnesota secured a narrow victory in Game 4, defeating the Spurs 114-109 on Sunday night, leveling the series at 2-2. The Spurs, despite a 2-point deficit in Game 1, mounted a strong comeback to win Games 2 and 3. Victor Wembanyama delivered a historic performance in Game 3, achieving a playoff stat line with at least 35 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 blocks, cementing his status as a Hall of Famer alongside legends like Hakeem Olajuwon and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Live coverage of Game 5 will be broadcast on NBC and Peacock, with NBA Showtime beginning at 7 p.m. ET on Peacock. The broadcast will feature Mike Tirico as the play-by-play announcer, joined by analysts Reggie Miller, Jamal Crawford, and courtside reporter Zora Stephenson to call the match. Coverage of the series will also feature NBA Showtime on Peacock, starting at 7 p.m. ET on Tuesday. Hosted by Maria Taylor alongside Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, and Tracy McGrady. Channel YouTube, the sports division of NBC Universal, is coordinating the coverage, with Frank Di Grassi as executive producer and president. The platform is renowned for delivering premier live events and insightful programming across major sports properties. The NBA's decision not to impose further punishment on Victor Wembanyama following an ejection in Game 4 has ignited a significant debate regarding league discipline and the status of its marquee players. According to reports from ESPN, Wembanyama will not face a suspension or fine after being ejected for elbowing Minnesota Timberwolves forward Naz Reid. This ruling clears Wembanyama to participate in Game 5 on Tuesday night in San Antonio, as the Timberwolves secured a 114-109 victory, tying the series at 2 games apiece. However, the lack of a financial penalty drew sharp scrutiny from NBA observers. Several commentators questioned why the league did not issue even a fine, given that officials assessed Wembanyama with a flagrant 2 foul, which mandates an automatic ejection. Oklahoma City Sports host Ryland Stiles noted the discrepancy, stating that the reaction to the situation is telling, suggesting the NBA should have at least fined Wembanyama. Kyle Neubeck of PHLY Sports emphasized the significance of the decision, asserting that not even a fine is how you know he's the new face of the league. John Krokzinski of The Athletic agreed on the suspension aspect, but questioned the omission of a fine. He pointed out that the absence of prior disciplinary history should not have factored into the decision. The practical implications for the San Antonio Spurs are substantial. Wembanyama's availability for Game 5 is crucial, as San Antonio lost him in the second quarter of Game 4, which allowed Minnesota to tie the series. His presence prevents the Spurs from needing to overhaul their rotation in the middle of a tied playoff series. The core of the debate centers on the distinction between a suspension and a financial penalty. A suspension would have altered the playoff series outcome, whereas a fine would have served to reinforce the seriousness of the contact without removing a top-tier star from a critical game. The league's choice leaves room for differing interpretations. The Spurs camp can argue that the ejection served as sufficient punishment and that Reid was uninjured. Conversely, critics contend that the NBA overlooked a viable middle ground option. This situation has amplified the discussion surrounding consistency in player discipline, as Wembanyama, as a central figure in the league, is now being measured against how similar incidents involving less prominent players are handled. The immediate basketball outcome is clear. Wembanyama plays in Game 5, but the broader reaction highlights a new area of contention regarding the league's disciplinary framework. Victor Wembanyama will not face further disciplinary action for a flagrant foul, clearing him for Game 5 of the series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The NBA has decided not to pursue further action following his ejection from Game 4 after allegedly elbowing Naz Reid in the throat area. The incident occurred with 8:39 left in the second quarter, following an offensive rebound, where Wembanyama struck Reid in the throat area. Video review by head referee Zach Zarba determined that the necessary elements of intent, wind-up, and follow-through for a flagrant 2 foul were met, leading to his first-ever ejection in his NBA career. Head coach Mitch Johnson defended his player, expressing frustration with the level of physicality directed at Wembanyama. Johnson stated that players are attempting to impose their physicality on him on every play, necessitating self-protection. He commented, "Just the amount of physicality that people play with him. At some level, you have to protect yourself. Every single play on every single part of the floor, people are trying to impose their physicality on you. He's gotten pushed down in transition, running freely. We don't complain because we're just going to play. We don't really give a S. But at some stage, he should be protected. If not, he's going to have to protect himself, and unfortunately, stuff like that happens. It's starting to get disgusting in terms of when he tries to fight through things, be professional and mature and deal with some of that stuff. I'm glad he took matters into his own hands. Not in terms of hitting Naz Reid, but he's going to have to protect himself if they're not. And I think it's disgusting. Despite the loss, the Spurs rallied, riding a 9-point second-half lead before succumbing to a fourth-quarter surge. The good news is that Wembanyama will be available for Game 5, as the incident was deemed a standard Flagrant 2, and he will be subject only to the mandatory $2,000 fine. His case is bolstered by his lack of prior history of such suspensions, unlike players such as Draymond Green or Isaiah Stewart. The series resumes on Tuesday in San Antonio. With the Knicks sweeping the 76ers, there will be no doubleheader, with the tip-off scheduled for 7:00 p.m. CT on NBC and Peacock. Game 6 remains uncertain, pending the outcome of the Cleveland versus Detroit matchup on Friday.